Hello America, Connecticut, students and parents, Wethersfield Eagles. In Wethersfield, the state judicial branch offices and corrections offices are in Wethersfield, and the corrections office is at the Wethersfield Hartford line. It has been involved with organized crimes since before its inception as a certain type of victim slash hyper victim, that the types of jobs and titles and the names of the people, the sciences that they're only capable of being, and or of sensing for or breaching a method anyone with using short words properly. There are multiple triages and people that are roles with them interstate, involved with multiple people with syntax regarding my name, and they're planting evidences where and how it's recorded in all natures of investigations, investigators, and on all sides of criminal and civil cases, the interbranch names, the lawyers, the intelligence tied to that, foreign and domestic, that have been shared. There have been Russians here and Americans here. And colonists here together before America's founders were born. People from China here and there are names of our countries. A breaching method forced since before religious messengers were born, demonstrably. Everyone to defend their names and as systems, tactical ulterior from the human different species body, made up of a whole bunch of individual bodies. And we know that there are other totally different species bodies, and they are also made up of a whole bunch of individual bodies. And they are distinct from us, but they are not distinct from us, and they are simultaneous with us. Per that which is further, not us nor them, while it is all things anyway. And part of itself will not be this. Part of itself is being this hyper additionally. And part of the two parts are mixing. The part that is juxtaposed with matter, an equal part of the part that will not juxtapose, but as equality, as itself, but distinctly, non-distinctly, simultaneously itself, slash hyper simultaneous. It will only stay hyper simultaneous, except for temporary slash lasting, where and how it makes more and more of its identity of value slash value progression, its identity of volume, as one identity of volume that is inseparable from all others. And it is functional being, hyper invisible, but still discernible distinctly from how it is invisible, but still discernible. And English was revealed to teach this. CNN has intelligence rules with intelligence families and federal agencies. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, is involved with crime methods of measuring and maintaining their subject treatments and making examples of free speech where they're covering up the rules of wire crime acts and methods, digital crime acts and methods, identity thefts, fraud, slanders, and as collusion slash S, with all that and all those involved with it, effectively used to keep out the breaching methods rules with identity theft, fraud, slanders against our own, like with black pupils' rights of eyes. Since we were kids, we had intelligence to be able to discern this and how others being communicated for our natural potentials, like with the suburbs. They were designed before America's founders were even born, with slavery entrenched with more than the 13 colonies, northern colonies and southern. That's why they had to leave it with northern colonies and southern colonies entrenched. But all have state collusion slash S with this. All kinds of drugs and medicines crimes, and wire and digital crimes and federal evidences crimes are involved with investigators of all ages and natures. There are forensics people involved with Fox Connecticut News and with the intelligence names next to them through time, involved with all kinds of identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake transcripts. New Britain Superior Court, Hartford courts, and the district court and their family members They have a number of people involved with child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart, first forced, and more recorded then and now involved. And they're lying about their motivations. They have roles with a whole bunch of different countries at Trinity College and Central Connecticut State University, with a whole bunch of people who were recorded by men and women on my street, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, or with a whole bunch of people from other areas, forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to plant evidences against themselves and against everyone else where they didn't want to. But everyone has self-value roles where they want to just take what comes before them. And, where there's mandated law, it is mandated for you guys not to hide and plot and keep switching names and refusing to give me a response. New Britain Superior Court has roles with the FBI Director Robert Luskin and a whole bunch of people tied to him, with the proven child abusers, leaders of kids years apart, involved with other natures of organized crimes, and them stacking collusion with all natures of crime scenes, with their databases there, fake transcripts, fake ties, fake natures of ties to people of all ages. Wethersfield Police Department faked me being at the police department, speaking with them as a kid, and now as an adult. As an adult, I did go down there. And I have one word of conversation with one officer. One's with the name Mendez. And I never saw on my street. And Eric Mendez is increasingly collusion with people that were in my algebra class with the Riley family and other families involved with the Department of Education. Brian Bonin, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. His family has, and his neighbors have roles with intelligence families. And they've been planting evidences. I did sequence shifts, federal evidences, crimes with investigators through time. Has something to do with their roles with people named DeMoro and McCord, involved with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, and with including with co-defendants of former director, with and as former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, is increasingly collusions with people named Comey, all sides of criminal and civil cases, including the Diddy trial, and with Comey's reported daughter involved with that. I believe he's the guy who was in the Britain Superior Court. There's a guy in the Britain Superior Court looks just like James Comey. I didn't know his name yet. A former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, has roles with the families of former foreign and domestic military in courts and their intimate ties, who have collusions with locations in West Hartford, New Britain, the town lines, with people from Wethersfield, with the state judicial branch offices and the corrections offices, increasingly involved with syntax on my street, with people involved with the falsified police reports, wire crime acts and methods, people that used to live here years ago named O'Brien, increasingly tied to child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart, first forced roles, and their roles with investigators remotely as collusions with a whole bunch of other countries, their roles with a Violet family and people from Yukon, with all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes, people from Whiting Forensics, increasingly involved with people named Phil Cololo and O'Brien, with multiple police departments involved with drugs and medicines crimes, with foreign and domestic medical families, and people involved with untimely deaths at Trinity College. Terry Cleesa, non-verbally recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed collusions with a whole bunch of people tied to them also at Trinity College and next to it since they were kids. Their whole family members involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, falsified police reports, and names next to the networks involved with WFSB stole my identity, attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others. They have Trantolo and other lawyers associated with the networks and their ad placements involved with all kinds of wire crime acts and methods, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and relative delusions. They also attach little kids and their family members to fake conversations and ties to doctors that weren't at all. And then they try to cover that up by forcing people for mental evaluation, for example, by faking things 2 times to cover up what I caught them doing when I forced people to call the police without telling them. Increasingly, a Leahy family has multiple courts, judges, and prosecutors and their family members and victims advocates involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids. They have drugs and medicines, crimes, and relative delusions. I'm not a doctor, but this is recorded. They faked conversations with me through the mail to other people. I can't get a response from them. Hartford Hospital, you have a bunch of people with a Leahy family. People with the name Lombardo are also involved with some untimely deaths with you guys, with this Leahy family. And the others with the FBI director, Robert Luskin, and other FBI directors, and intelligence families with the houses and businesses next to you, like Mayano, and ILO's Kitchen, is increasingly involved with the Ray Collusion or the Joe DeMoro with various natures of federal evidences crimes, with years apart proven for sexual and medical offenders roles, like their Bill Collusion is further with Whiting Forensics. And with Joshua Julian, with other natures of organized crimes, with the Facebook page of the principal child abuser, leader of kids, also used to force it effectively as digital crime acts and methods with the courts involved with the FBI, like New Britain Superior Court, Harper Courts, their family members. Increasingly, Rick Cianfaglione and his family recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed confessions of people named Colo and O'Brien, and others I don't know the names of. They've been planting evidences at the corners of the street of the principal upskirt nature, that principal being. I caught them recorded collusions worse with him. And he tried to confess this. They hid what I caught them forcing him to do. And collusions. There are proofs years ahead of time planned before he was there. Increasingly, people on Two-Rod Highway and where it runs into Hangdog Lane. And Hangdog Lane in the corner of Hangdog Lane and Highcrest Street, and other corners on Highcrest Street have a WTNH also with the FBI and with multiple triages, with identity theft, fraud, slander, with syntax confessions tied to that, and people at Central Connecticut State University with roles with people from Russia and Ukraine, Korea, Italy, involved with the FBI director and predicate acts with courts and their family members on the sides. And at Central Connecticut State University, they have intelligence families also involved with Gail King with them with that. People associated with Gail King. CBS is recorded confessing, demonstrating, confirming this is true. That's part of the reason they stole my identity and put me in fake conversations with themselves and with others about the World Trade Center attack, while they were forcing organized crimes against kids and cover-ups of ones with years apart from that. There were more proven years apart, first force child abusers, leaders of kids, and there were families involved with other natures of organized crimes involved with that. And their roles with and as names associated with the names next to the networks too, and the sources. WTNH has people who have been planting, like Whiting Forensics has students. There's an intelligence family, also educators named O'Neill with West Hartford, who have roles with Whiting Forensics with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and fake motivations. They're bringing their kids into organized crimes with them. They're pretending passions and emotions between campuses. At the same time, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, foreign and domestic medical families, attaching little kids to fake conversations with themselves. You have behavior racketeering worse than war crimes involved. Everyone says, I'm not a lawyer. Get the heck on paper then. I'm not a doctor. You guys need to get on paper. Multiple courts involved with Hartford Hospital and their businesses and houses next to them, as those names involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones too. That's when they start leaking things. The FBI has collusion with names on Church Street in Old Wethersfield and the corners of that street, increasingly involved with people with sexual and medical offenders of kids, and people associated with the Heather Hansen, and confessions about the rape threats and confirmations, which are also confirmations. New Britain Superior Court's Facebook page has rape threats involved with John DeMoro and others with the name Kerr DeMoro, and they're educators. They try to make a fake ties to me at my grammar school with Joe DeMoro. I only saw him on my campus one day, 2 times. One at the end of the school class, he wanted to fight me because I did his thing backwards. Mr. Abruzzi, which is also brought up by kids and adults at Central Connecticut State University involved before and after the World Trade Center attack. Central Connecticut State University in Connecticut had collusion/S with people from the other countries, including Saudi Arabia, that they forced the collusions with them interstates. There are people with the name Scalora, and they have cousins, people that say they were their cousins named Cololo and Demoro, who also have collusions with names tied to them, who have roles with home break-ins years apart. And like Demoro had roles with a Heather Hansen at different houses, and people involved with the corner of the street and that was since before the new people moved in there. These are also people that live near the business of the people that they work at, with a former, all kinds of people with the politics and their family members, mayors. A former mayor, Gold, is increasingly putting fake nature of ties to me with a Debbie Gold, a Lee Gold, and people tied to them. Involved with whiting forensics too, with sexual and medical offenders of kids. They have all kinds of differences, rackets, with the religious theme too. Harvard Hospital brought up the name Chet Casper or Casper. I know Chet Casper has been planting evidences with intelligence families next to the state capitol and the ones on my street through time, involved with child abusers, leaders of kids, and multiple police departments involved with them with organized crime acts, with identity theft, fraud, claims, with the news at the same time to prevent the right outcome and to keep self-value collusion/S in the future too, where this breaching method since before America's founders were born. It controls the narratives and natures regarding what they call their opinions about Black people's rights of eyes communications even. You guys are dishonestly pretending not to understand people. The agencies have collusions with this recorded, even with Facebook, all along Route Wells Road, which is Route 175, and conjunctions to it and to that, from the founding locations in Wethersfield, including a family named Wells, is increasingly involved with identity theft, fraud, slander, sequence shifts, federal evidences, crimes. People from off campuses putting predicate acts with the facts with the databases and having people act tied to that. You guys are child abused, not just sexually. These are people that make you, go about your behavior, your defenses of logic and reason. You're using where you're going to be polite and or where you're going to be the opposite against you, using every difference against you. The way the breaching method showed them they need to hide how it has complete remote possession over the voices at locations, areas, and states. They have our founders' communications replaced. We're directed to understand clearly why and how. James Madison is the only name of a founder that we know of. And we know that nature itself and President/Chief shows us that all Native Americans are our founders. Whether they agreed about and didn't know about the plan or not, there are proofs that they couldn't even explain to the other founders who had the counter story. James Madison's plan was to force people to break the laws that were equivalent as, they were value as torture, extortion, slavery, 3 ways manifest. They're getting over on nature's trinity, which is manifest with the rest relativity/hyper relativity, the rest of its complete nature of relationship to itself that stays inseparable, even though it won't mix with the part of its identity of value progression we could discern. We could discern there's one, we are being generated. But by that which is generating other species bodies too. The other species bodies didn't invent why and how there are a whole bunch of different species bodies. And each one of them is made up of a whole bunch of individual bodies. So we could discern that which is generating all differences. And or if we are using systems tactical, other ulterior from its own, let alone tactically ulterior from its own. This breaching method forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded people to defend themselves as syntax nature, not knowing how to do it so properly, to counter positions that it started sustaining upon that. And it knew then the people that were hurt by that too would have to counter that too, wrongly, leaving itself out, that which was sustaining this outcome, because it knew that only locations, areas, and states' voices could operate the phenomenon of countries' names and or the equivalent. Where and how, where our human species body of individual bodies as names, for its use of difference, show where it shows us its own difference. The difference of that simultaneous nature, that distinct identity of simultaneous nature that has us distinct from the other species bodies, but non-distinct from them and simultaneous with them. But that's what we're being shown, a further hyper-simultaneous, a further hyper-relativity, not just relativity, black. We have the same colorized, different colorized at the same time, so we could discern its hyper-difference. Because that, even the fish, birds, even insects look like they have two eyes. They have quality aspects. All exception, nature come with demonstration / that's of the same thing. And about a special difference. It's not just that nature has a special difference, where Earth is right where it's about to be too hot, too cold. We are shown, we use its value system here, its identity of relativity, the positive and negative, its way, / as a correlation / hypercorrelation, or our value as nature, as identity is forced away from here. Forced a special difference. Our special difference is forced from here. As forced space nature transfer. A special difference as nature's nature. We could ignore nature's nature. Being and having been. Systems tactical ulterior from that which is hypernative. As that identity of value progression. That is relativity to positive and negative. Its way in a way, as a way that shows us too. Even nature itself shows us the difference between criminal insidiousness natures of positives, like peace. Criminal insidiousness natures of peace, or hyper peace. That which is, even if it messes up, as long as it's trying to correlate with its system, it is itself distinctly as the order of the finite. It is itself distinctly as the order of what is active and or grouped. It is itself distinctly as that which is progressive or simultaneous, as that which is, again, increasingly a distinct identity of simultaneously greater than, more finite, and with active relativity to itself as all things, therefore as us. Distinctly from where and how it is not juxtaposed as with matter, or as the equal portion that is juxtaposing with it anyway. Has three identities of relationship to itself. And this is how English more probably and demonstrably was revealed to be taught by the ancients before the sciences were forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to defend their syntax, the names of the people of the sciences, abridged while pretending other. And so being and having been wrought, incapable of defending that and of affording to be, let alone to protract short words with convictions proper for any individual group difference, a group, or any humanity voicing overall, any honest humanity voicing. No proper treatment of American history leaves out how we have black people's whites of eyes, and how a preaching method that had been sustained had sustained roles with its preaching method. Northern colonies and southern colonies, more than 13. That means everyone heard each other already and themselves, syntactically, therefore physically to an extent, while they had to pretend other too. If we pay attention to what those laws were valued as altogether. It was a human fact, human nature preaching method. And nature was demonstrating that. Nature demonstrated to the northern colonies and southern colonies. There's a human fact, human nature breaching method entrenched. But the same breaching method showed them that they need to keep that, need to keep their counters of that. contained and self-defended as nature's needs, nature's styles, reliant upon forcing other things, others, ourselves blame, right, for where and how it has roles with all individual, grouped, and simultaneous voices. You guys can't follow mandated law on a mass scale. The people who took classes with me will confess this to you. And Anthony Agman tried to. I never had a word of conversation with him. He's one of the ones involved with a Domain family and other family and a Riley family with some Jewish themed and involved and Muslim themed and Catholic themed involved next to Fox Connecticut News and at Fox Connecticut News Intelligence, involved at and next to CBS News and CBS News Intelligence, involved at and next to WTNH News and News Intelligence in their sources, involved with all kinds of predicate acts and predicate acts methods, behavior racketeering worse than war crimes. They are dishonest when they pretend not to understand people on social media because they use wire and mail crime methods. A bunch of courts have personally and professionally a Leahy family and one's named Lombardo involved with child abusers and organized crimes with kids on my street from other areas, with the same house involved with the Wethersfield police, with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me when I was a kid and I was an adult. They're switching names and forging names intercities with multiple police departments and multiple campuses. They have roles with multiple campuses. These are people at Trinity College and Central Connecticut State University that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have a Joshua Stryker is also involved with a whole bunch of people with organized crimes in my area. I never saw in my area in my life. A bunch of people that are involved with the Wethersfield police, with organized crimes, with child abusers, leaders of kids, intercities, with all other police departments. These are also names, roles with the businesses and the people associated with them, the houses, and the state corrections office and judicial branch office, and the roles with the differences of town lines. Exceptions to that. Increasingly, the breaching method shows them the need to hide how they valued exceptions. Exception nature used tactical ulterior from how nature uses it. We have been systems, forgiveness is because if we're making guilt convictions, leaving out the breaching method, we're getting it wrong. That's also why and how they're not responding, because they know I already recorded them. They were recording themselves and then pretending other with their use /s of names at and next to each of the campuses I went. I only went 1 year to 2 campuses in Wethersfield. In other words, I went to a kindergarten for 1 year. The names next to that campus are increasingly involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, with the families putting fake things in databases, like a Harris family and a Leahy family are increasingly involved with all kinds of drugs and medicines, crimes with the kids, and having them do that and lie for this reason, but lie for that. They're putting fake uses of drugs and alcohol into databases. These are people that already showed themselves. They were shown they had collusions with the interbranch, all sides of criminal and civil cases, private ones, people with the organized crimes of the judicial branch, corrections offices, their houses where they live, where people next to them live is a difference of that. They're getting over on difference of all natures because that's how the nature communicates to us. So through administrations, a Robert Luskin has roles with a James Comey, and now with a Kash Patel, with sequence shifts and wire crime acts and methods, and having been led by falsified police reports, fake phone transcripts, changed. They're attaching kids to fake ties to other kids. Please have Kash Patel informed and confess to them and to the presidents. You guys hid this through administrations. I've recorded this since I was a kid. And this is also per a method /s recorded since before America's founders were born. Black pupils, period. It is time. So please, don't be cowards and just get one person onto paper who disbelieves. WTNH has a whole bunch of people with their sources planting evidences at the corner of the streets with Russians that were involved with Clinton people since before that. At the same corners of the streets, same ones involved with triages interstates, has something to do with their syntax regarding those corners of the streets. Central Connecticut State University has a bunch of people that recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed collusions with this. And that's in New Britain, Connecticut. These are campuses in Wethersfield. These are also names like a Scalora families involved with organized crimes with kids next to the campuses in Hartford, too, and Glastonbury, and Wethersfield. And with the same house/S involved with their people that say that they're their cousins, involved with child abusers, leaders, and kids years apart, first forced. All kinds of military corruption, too, with sexual and medical offenders and the family members of the judges associated with the like triages, with probate court judges, people involved with elderly homes, the same ones involved with the child abusers, intercities, untimely deaths, and murders, and people next to body double spots years apart were brought up at the same time. Such like that was recorded on Facebook. They can't afford to have the hyper evidential discerned. So they've been changing and faking digital evidences. People with whiting forensics are increasingly collusion since I was a kid, with the same house/S involved a whole bunch of people at the networks and next to them. Get them on paper, one name and sequence.